when a potential tutor says in their interview that they can take on as many students as we're willing to give them, that actually is a red flag. What if they're not as good as me? What if they can't tutor the way that I tutor? Remember that after you hire your tutor to come onto your team, your job isn't done. You can't just leave them be and expect them to do a really amazing job. Some of them might. After growing my team of tutors from 0 to 5 to 15 to 20 to 50, I've learned a thing or two about what it means to hire the best tutors for your tutoring team. In my first year of business hiring tutors, my 5th tutor hire, Anna, actually stayed with me all the way until I sold my business. So she stayed with me for 7 years, which tells me that I did at least 1 or 2 things right when it came to hiring tutors and making sure that I created a company that encouraged tutors to stick around. Today, I'm going to cover 15 key tips to help you find the best tutors for your tutoring company. And the further you watch, the juicier the nuggets of information get. So make sure you stay all the way until the very end. Hi, tutor bosses. I'm Lisa. I'm the founder of Lisa Study Guides, a private tutoring company which I recently sold for multiple 6 figures. And I now help tutors start and scale your tutoring businesses. So if you have a friend who is a tutor as well, then please share this video with them. Let's get started into the 15 top things that I recommend you do to find the best tutors for your tutoring team. Before you go out there and find the best tutor for your tutoring team, you need to make sure you have an ideal tutor persona. Just like how we always talk about getting your dream ideal student persona, you also want to make sure that you have your ideal tutor persona as well. So for me, my ideal tutor persona meant somebody who had recently graduated high school, because what this meant was that they would be really up to date with the curriculum and had just gone through graduating from high school, which meant that they could relate to the students we were teaching who were in the age bracket of 16 to 18 years old. When it came to my company, I really wanted to create this culture where students didn't just come to us for tutoring itself, but they came for a little bit of life coaching as well. With tutors who had just graduated, they could impart their own life experience onto these younger students, which would provide them a more holistic experience. You want to make sure that across your tutors, you have some consistency so that your brand and your company gets known for something. And so by ensuring that you hire a tutor that fits into your ideal tutor persona, your business will become known for hiring, whether that be recent graduates who are newly in university, or perhaps it's a team of tutors who are exceptionally friendly and empathetic, or maybe it's even a group of teachers, or maybe you specialize in hiring examiners because you want to really showcase yourself as an authority in the space. Next, in order to attract the best tutor to your tutoring team, you want to make sure that you have a job description that attracts your ideal tutor fit. So we're not here to try to attract absolutely every single person to our business. We also don't have the capacity to hire every single tutor that's out there. So instead, be specific about who you want, because they're the person who's going to represent your company. They will be the face of your company. So for my tutoring business, because I knew that my ideal tutor fit were those who had recently graduated high school and could impart their life experience of recently being in high school with those who are in the next generation younger than them, in my job description, I included works well for those in university. So by specifically calling out, it starts to attract those who recognize and resonate with the job description, and it starts to repel those who don't identify themselves as university students. So it starts to filter out the people you do want versus the people you may not want so much. The other thing I added was flexible hours. So I knew when it came to tutoring that tutors would mostly tutor after school hours or on the weekends. Tutoring isn't your standard 9 to 5, especially if you're teaching students who are in high school, which is what we were doing. And so therefore what I did was I turned this into a perk. I went, hey, if you come to work for me, you're going to get flexible hours at these times of the day. So if this suits you, then apply for this position. So when we're talking about hiring the best tutors for your tutoring team, it's not just about finding the best person for the role, but it's making sure that that person also fits into your business's culture and expectations as well. By the way, as I'm talking about this, I'm realizing that I actually made a lot of mistakes for me to get to this stage where I can share with you my top tips to find the best tutors for your tutoring team. What I've recently done is I've published a free ebook, The Biggest Mistakes I Made Making My First 6 Figures. I would highly recommend that you go ahead and download it, because I don't want you making the same mistakes that I did making your first 6 figures. Next, where do you actually find the best tutors for your tutoring business? There are so many different places you can be be finding your tutors? For me, I did a combination of cold outreach. So what we did is we would hit up recent graduates on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and just cold DM them to see if they were interested in tutoring with us. The other thing was, because I had built up a social media following, I would post out a blast on my social media to see if any of our followers would be interested in actually tutoring with us. And the third thing I did was I asked for referrals. So I asked family and friends, I asked my tutors if they knew anybody. What you'll find is as your tutoring business grows, you'll start to find more and more people start to apply for your business. In the beginning, I relied more on cold outreach, but over time, as more and more people got to know my business, as we started to tutor students who would then graduate and do really well, they would actually come back to the business and start tutoring for the business as well. So it created this amazing snowball effect where I was able to find the best tutors for my tutoring team, and most of whom stayed on my team for 4+ years. Next, let's talk about the interview questions you'll ask so that you can hire the best tutors for your tutoring team. The most important thing you're going to do in your tutor interview is to ask your tutor qualifying questions to test whether or not they're going to be your ideal tutor persona. So for example, for my business, I knew that my tutors had to service their students after hours, on school nights, and on the weekends. So what I would ask them is what their schedule looked like currently and what they expect it to be once they start tutoring with us. If they say something along the lines of, I actually work every single weeknight, plus I work weekends for a retail store, then that's going to trigger some question marks in my head, because I'm going to wonder whether or not they're going to have the capacity to take on board enough students to tutor. Another question I ask is, do you have any upcoming travel plans? Because my ideal tutor persona are university students, I know that often a big priority of theirs is to travel a lot because they're newly independent and they can do so. And many of them actually go on a gap year, which could then intervene with a student's progress if they've started working with a student. So by asking this question, I get a better understanding of how committed they can be to this role, whether or not any of their upcoming travel plans will actually interfere with a student's learning progress, and whether or not it's too much of an interference and therefore we won't be able to hire the tutor, or if it's something that we can work around with the tutor. What you'll also do over time is continue to refine your interview questions so you get better and better at sussing out whether or not this person is an ideal tutor persona. It's also why I give my Tutor Boss clients my list of interview questions I specifically ask my tutors, which helped me grow my team from 10 to 50 tutors, so that they can shortcut their way to find the best tutors possible for their tutoring company. Next, an underrated way to find the best tutor for your tutoring team is to look at their personality. A really simple question to ask yourself is, do I like them? When it comes to tutoring, first impressions really count. A student will get a tutor for their first lesson, and depending on whether or not they like that tutor in the first lesson, it's going to either drive them to come back to that tutor time after time, or go, actually, I didn't buy that tutor, I'm not coming back again. If you like that tutor after your first interaction with them and you have a great first impression, then it's likely that your parents and students who come to your business for tutoring will also like them as well. Now, on the flip side, if you don't have a great first impression with the tutor, then there's a potential that your parent and student also might not have the best impression of them either, which can make your life a little bit difficult, especially if you're finding that your tutor isn't able to get students returning back to them. You're losing students as a result because they're just leaving your company and trying a different company altogether, rather than giving you the time to try a different tutor. For me, because I've had so much interview experience, after the first 30 seconds of meeting somebody on an interview, I know whether or not I'm going to hire them just because of that initial first impression. So make sure you have a think about that first impression when you're hiring tutors. Next, watch out for red flags when it comes to finding the best tutor for your tutoring company. Now, for me, when a potential tutor says in their interview that they can take on as many students as we're willing to give them, that actually is a red flag in my mind. Even though on the surface it sounds great because they're willing to give you their all, it sounds like they're really enthused and excited about the job. Actually, what I've learned over time is that they're not actually thinking critically about their time management or their priorities. A person only has so many hours of the day, so I would rather them tell me what's actually realistic for them so that we can actually have a realistic pathway for the both of us moving forward. In the past, I've had tutors come to me and say, I can take on as many students as you want, but by the time they have 8 students, they're actually really overwhelmed and realize that they've overcommitted. So potential other red flags include things like, 1, 1, are they late to the interview but don't even apologize, which shows you that they don't value other people's time? 2, can they actually teach you the subject? Getting them to teach you a particular topic and seeing whether or not it's actually accurate. Next, to find the best tutors for your tutoring company, it's important to ask feedback from your top performing tutors. When you have top performing tutors, they're doing something right in the company, and it's likely that they really enjoy working at your company too. And so, one of the best ways to find more people like them is to actually sit them down and ask them, why do you enjoy working at this company? What is it that you value about your job? What could we be doing better? These questions actually help you understand what's going on in their minds, which in turn helps you understand how to improve on your ideal tutor persona, how to improve on your job description so you're attracting the right type of people to your business, how to improve on your interview questions, and to pre-qualify people to see whether or not they're a part of your ideal tutor fit. So for Lisa Study Guys, one of the big things tutors really loved about the company was just how much support they actually felt they had from the company compared to other tutoring places. So what that meant was we would really buckle down in terms of the support we provided our tutor, whether that be training or resources or get-togethers. And what that would mean is that we'd really emphasize that to the public in the job description, in our interview, in our tutor landing page. We really highlighted that we cared about our tutors, and one of our ways of showing that we cared was by providing them heaps of support. And what that would mean is that we'd attract more tutors who enjoyed that support, which in turn would mean that they would have a better experience at the company and be better performing tutors. Next, you don't actually know if you've got the best tutor for your tutoring company until about 6 months in. Unfortunately, when it comes to hiring, you can have really great first impressions, but you simply don't know how a person will perform until a few months of actually working with them. From my experience, I've hired tutors who started out really strong, but as the months went on, their priorities started to shift and they cared less and less about tutoring. Meanwhile, I had tutors who started off weaker, perhaps they didn't have the strongest tutoring skills, but they worked on it, which meant that over time, they became better performing tutors than those who had actually started out quite promising. So when it comes to hiring tutors, there's always going to be an element of risk. You're never going to truly know whether or not they're going to be the best fit for your tutoring business until you genuinely work with them for a bit of time. That's why I highly recommend that you have a 3-month probation period. What this does is it provides a certain time frame to actually hire and onboard a tutor and see what they're like for the first few months of working with you. It also gives the two of you the opportunity to get together at the end of the 3 months and to review that period and see how they've actually gone. When you have something like a 3-month probation period, it actually encourages the tutor to recognize that, hey, just because you've gotten the job doesn't mean that your work is done. There is still room for improvement, and that's what we'll be measuring over the next 3 months to see how you've really gone. If they've done well over those 3 months, you can continue working with them, but if they've severely underperformed, it actually gives you the opportunity to let them go at the end of the 3 months or decide to work together on a performance management plan. So what that means is if they haven't done exceptionally, but they haven't done so terribly, you can work out a plan with them to see how you can work together to improve their skills at the company and become a better tutor. Next, an amazing way to test whether or not you've actually hired a great tutor for your tutoring company is whether or not they actually get referrals and testimonials. So for us at Lisa Study Guys, it was really easy to see which tutors were performing exceptionally at the company because we would get people calling us up asking if they could actually have that tutor to tutor their son or daughter, and we'd actually get reviews on our Google page about that tutor as well. So just like you, if you've been tutoring for some period of time, you get your own referrals and your own testimonials. But the same thing will happen for your tutors. Their students are going to start spreading word of mouth about them because they've had a really great experience, and you're going to be able to see from the top that they're getting referrals and testimonials, which tells you you've got a winner of a tutor on your tutoring team. Next, for you to find the best tutor for your tutoring team, it's important for you to let go of the idea that your tutors will never be as good as you. This is something I spend quite a bit of time on with my tutor boss clients who are ready to actually start hiring their first tutor. One of the big fears is, what if they're not as good as me? What if they can't tutor the way that I tutor? And the fact of the matter is, somebody else will never be like you, and that is actually perfectly okay. Every tutor you bring on board will have their own unique strengths and weaknesses, just like how you have your own strengths and weaknesses as well. And to give you an example, my strength as a tutor was that I taught my students in a really simple and clear way so that anybody could understand even the most complex concepts. Whereas my weakness, I would say, was that I wasn't necessarily the most empathetic person in the world. On the other hand, I hired a tutor who was exceptionally empathetic, and her students loved her because of that. And that was her big strength. Her weakness, though, was that she would always onboard all of her students' fears and anxieties, which would leave her feeling overwhelmed. And so what we did was we focused on training her as a tutor. We focused on strengthening her weaknesses so that she wasn't feeling so overwhelmed all the time. But she ended up being an incredible tutor who would often get referrals and who would often get testimonials as well. So let go of the idea that your tutors need to be as good as you. I actually found over time that because of my tutors' different strength, that it meant that they were actually better than me in their own unique ways. Next, you have to know that the best tutors can only be the best tutors when they're assigned to the right students. Every tutor has their own strengths and weaknesses, and every student has their different needs and wants. And so as a tutoring business owner, one thing you can do to help a tutor perform at their best is by making sure that you try to give them students who are best aligned with them. Let's say you've got a student who just wants the blunt truth. They don't want no fluffing about when it comes to feedback. They just want to know what they're doing wrong and how they can improve on that. If you match them up with a tutor who isn't as direct with their feedback, then what you'll find is they may not gel as well together. And so what you want to do instead is to find a tutor who you think can actually provide them more of that direct feedback so that their personalities and that their learning and teaching styles actually connect really well. This is how you can help your tutors be the best versions of themselves as a tutor, by creating an environment that enables them, nurtures them to be the best that they possibly can be. Even the best tutors with someone who isn't the right fit with them will struggle. So what I intend for this lesson to teach you is that it's not all just on the tutor to be the best versions of themselves. You can guide them and you can help them and create that environment that enables them to be the best versions of themselves. And this leads me to my next point. You don't just find the best tutors, you have to make them. Good onboarding and training is going to go a really long way to help nurture your tutors to be the best versions of themselves. They can start off strong if they've made a really great first impression on you, if they're qualified as an ideal tutor fit, but it's important for you as a company to actually ensure that they have the best environment possible so that they can grow. So at Lisa Study Guys, we would provide our tutors with an array of support. We'd give them training sessions, we'd give them resources, we'd specifically make time to catch up with them so we could see how they were going, and we never stopped. No matter how long a tutor had worked at the company for, whether it be for 6 months or whether it been for 6 years, we were always offering training so that we could collectively as a group become better tutors. So remember that after you hire your tutor to come onto your team, your job isn't done. You can't just leave them be and expect them to do a really amazing job. Some of them might, but most of them, you need to help them to really grow into themselves as amazing tutors for your company. Next, one thing I do to ensure I hire the best tutors for my tutoring team is to make sure I never hire out of desperation. If you're looking to hire a tutor, this highly means that your demand from students who want tutoring from you is greater than the supply possible. Either you're fully booked out and you don't have the time, or you have tutors already on your team who are also all fully booked out. And so what this means is it often leads us to be in a situation where we hire out of desperation. And I have been there many times before. Now, you know you're hiring out of desperation when you're hiring someone who's not part of your ideal tutor fit. If you're rationalizing and making up excuses for why they need to be on your team, as opposed to feeling really excited that they're going to be on your team, and you know you're just doing it because you've got a bunch of students waiting for you to get started on tutoring. But I can tell you from repeated experience that if you hire out of desperation, you're going to feel like you've made a quick fix, but it's actually going to create more and bigger problems for you in the long run. I had a tutor that I hired who just was not the right fit for the business, but because we had students on our waiting list and I wanted to make money, I hired this tutor. But this tutor just ended up being a massive headache. She would often cancel sessions so that the students wouldn't have their sessions. She would often be late to sessions. We had talks over and over again and she said that she would improve, but she never did. And eventually I had to let her go. But because she'd onboarded 5 students in that time, what did that mean for the 5 students after she left? I had to onboard them. Even though I was already super super time poor, I felt bad for actually letting these students go as well. So this actually created a long-term problem for me where I had to step out of my CEO role and step back into that tutoring role, which was the opposite of what I wanted to be doing. I hired this tutor so that I could actually step out of the tutoring role. This is a lesson I actually talk about in my biggest mistakes I've made making my first 6 figures ebook. And this is a reminder for you to go ahead and download that because I definitely don't want you to be in the same position I was all those years ago. Next, one tip I have for you to hire the best tutors possible for your tutoring business is to use the mantra, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. So when it comes to hiring, especially if you're new to hiring process, there's gonna be a lot of uncertainty and you're not gonna be 100% sure sometimes whether or not someone is going to be a good fit for your business or not. And this is completely okay because you just don't have the interview and assessment skills that will come as you do more and more interviews. And so in the meantime, I would say to go with your gut. One thing that really helped me was using this mantra, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Because with some tutors, I'd be half foot in and half foot out. I would go to myself, well, I kind of like these aspects about a tutor, but I don't really like these aspects about the tutor. So I was umming and erring about it. But what this mantra does is it just fixes that problem straight away. If it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no. And you're going to know when someone is a hell yes because they're going to get you so excited. You know you can't wait to hire them. And by using this mantra, I found that I never regretted saying no to the people I didn't end up hiring. So when you're unsure, go with your gut and use the mantra, if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no. Next, for you to find the best tutors for your tutoring company, practice makes perfect. In the beginning, you're going to have so many different questions. You're going to be asking yourself questions like, what is my ideal tutor persona? What are the interview questions I need to be asking? What do I need to include in my job description? But as you hire more and more tutors, as you interview more and more tutors, you're going to iterate on those processes every single time so that over time, you become clearer on who your ideal tutor fit is. You become clearer with what your job description is going to look like so you can attract the right type of person to your business. You're going to know what type of interview questions to ask that are going to help you pinpoint whether it's a hell yes for that person or it's a no for a person applying to be a tutor. And just like everything else in your business, when it comes to hiring tutors, it's a skill set. So my recommendation here is to see every single applicant as an iteration. What are you going to learn from this applicant and what can you improve for the next applicant so you can continue to find the best tutors possible for your tutoring company. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, I would love to know in the comment section which key tip stood out most to you. This is going to help me understand what is helpful for you so that I can focus more on these type of tips in the future. And in the meantime, you can go and watch my videos on hiring tutors. Should I hire tutors for my tutoring company? Or what I've learned hiring 100+ tutors for my tutoring company. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!